Good morning, Jay. So nice to see you again. We had a chance to speak briefly last week about your campaign, which you started for Espoo City Council. And we introduced briefly the three pillars of your campaign, the most central issues which you would be discussing and focusing on. The three were education, environment, and entrepreneurship, the three E's. But I wanted to have the opportunity to speak first with you about education. As I know, and many of your supporters know, this has been your specialty. You have been working for many years as a beloved student guidance counselor and educator here in Espoo. So I thought we could delve more deeply into how that plays into your themes for your campaign.
Sounds great.
So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background in education to begin with.
Sure. Yeah. So I've worked in education my whole career in different areas, but primarily in the U.S. it was in private education within the Lutheran Church. And then when my family and I moved here, it seemed like a natural progression to continue with education, and also decided it was time to work within the public education, and had an opportunity to do so through Espoo International School, and that was a really seemed like a good fit, both with the needs of the school and with my own skills.
How do you find the education system here in Finland, and specifically in Espoo?
I think it's a great system that has has a great reputation, and after having been here for a while, I realized a lot of reasons why. Education is a high priority for Finnish society, and simply put, a lot of funding goes in education in Finland, and it's also something that there clearly is respect from anyone who lives in Finland has respect towards the education system and educators, which is a big difference. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, from where I came from in America, that respect isn't always there. And also, that means that you can see society's priorities through essentially how much funding goes into it. So that was a big one.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Mm.
I think at the top of most of our minds right now is about what we've been living through for the last year, this pandemic. I think it's had far-reaching impact on so many aspects of our civil society, but especially in education. So I wanted to discuss from your perspective, what do you think are some of the positive ramifications of the pandemic on the education system here?
Yeah, well, I suppose the very first thing would be, it challenged teachers and students alike to really up their game in terms of technology, and harnessing the available technologies to continue to learn well, and for teachers to teach well, and to do so in creative ways without being able to be in the classroom together. And I think also some students seem to thrive in this remote learning environment, whether it's because it's more flexible and they're able to, be at home for it, or it may be that it reduces the number of these summative assessments in traditional ways of just sitting down in a room and having 45 minutes to take a test. Some students have just had lower stress because of the remote learning.
Do you think that some of these changes are here to stay?
I think there will be some lasting impacts. I mean, if nothing else, we know it can be done. And while there are, I'd say, more challenges than benefits, it's something that I think has given teachers and students alike confidence that hey, I can teach this way, I can learn this way, and we can essentially deal with the challenge in pretty effective ways.
So there might be some integration of this hybrid model going forward into the future.
Well, I have a feeling that when the pandemic is over, that I think things will go back pretty much to normal. That's my guess. But I do think it is one really positive potential lasting impact is that maybe the teachers are not quite as, it might kind of break teachers out of this more traditional mold of giving tests in a short period of time. Just a traditional test. I think teachers are seeing that, well, I can actually see how much students understand through non-traditional methods.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be a benefit for those students that have test anxiety, which is a very common problem.
Very common. So that leaves us to the maybe the other side of the spectrum. How do you think that students have suffered, and what have been the negative consequences in education? Because of
Yeah,
the
I would
pandemic?
say that the first thing that comes to mind are the practical things, like not being able to do things like literally practicals, labs and things, um, PE lessons where you simply can't be together to do cooperative or team sports, and there are just limits as to what you can do remotely. And but then there are also the social and emotional tolls, and absolutely even the most introverted of students have I think are missing being together with their classmates, being in a community physically and not just virtually. And I'm afraid we're seeing a lot of the results here of more and more demands on the welfare services for student welfare, counseling and social issues. That's really seems to be a clear fallout from the pandemic.
There's been a lot of news recently on bullying in Finnish schools. There were some horrific incidents in East Helsinki, and this has been a broad topic of conversation. I was wondering what your position is, and how you think Espoo City has been able to address this issue.
Yeah, we're really excited about I mean, we've had a pretty strong stance against bullying over the years, and fortunately, very few issues with any kind of serious bullying. But teasing and is a normal part of life with children and young people, and I think it inevitably goes too far at times
Is there
where
any specific program that you've adopted?
yes, we've had in our own school we've used Kiva Cola with primary school and a program called Bully Free, which is an American curriculum in the middle school. We're more and more beginning to merge those two since we have grades 1 through 9 in our school. But now there's this new initiative in the capital area. We're on the same side, Samalla Puolella campaign, and this is I think is a very comprehensive program that is essentially challenging all schools to make sure they have done all the checks and balances on their bully prevention program, including involvement of the parents and students in developing the program. So that's something I'm really happy that we're having a chance to develop the program further.
Are there measures that you would like to see taken, especially in Espoo, as a student, as a city councilman, that you think could ameliorate the services that are offered in our communities here?
Do you mean specifically about bully prevention, or you mean just for supporting of the students?
In supporting students
Yeah.
in education and
Uh,
supporting youth and students?
well, I think on this issue of the needs in terms of their emotional health, I think that there need to be more resources. The school welfare officers and psychologists have been and continue to be overwhelmed in terms of the demands on them. So there needs to be more resources put into student welfare services. And I think it's a great system that we have these staff, including the nurses in schools, but they are always overwhelmed. So there needs to be an increase of staffing there. So it's more money in that way. Um, Otherwise, I think there are issues with the increasing internationality and multicultural perspective in Espoo that with more and more people moving into Espoo from other parts of the world, I think the country and Espoo are still catching up a bit on, and Espoo is making some great strides towards welcoming people from other parts of the world as employees and students. But there still needs to be a greater emphasis on finding ways to really help them be welcomed, integrated, and that includes also making sure they have study options that aren't purely in Finnish.
So Jay, I know, and most of your supporters know that you teach though you speak Finnish fluently, you teach at Espoo International School. So you're getting a great influx of these um, immigrants who know English, who are studying in English. And I'm wondering what kind of opportunities are there enough places in English at the primary and lower secondary level? And what kind of opportunities are there for students beyond compulsory education to continue in English, especially if they don't pursue the very competitive IB programs?
Yeah, I think that over the years it's been pretty clear that there's more demand for the English study places than there is supply. That we need to increase the number, in my opinion. And the other side of things, and when you get into high school, it's even more so. There's in the capital area in general, there are not enough English language IB study places. And Espoo definitely falls into that same category. The demands to get into those programs are higher than some students can meet, even if they don't have Finnish language skills that are sufficient enough to study in, for example, a Finnish language lukio or in vocational training. So, and the other thing that's missing in Espoo is we don't have any bilingual high school options, uh, Finnish and English, and that's something they do have in Helsinki. And so our students that
Oh, they do. That's interesting. Yes, and there are at least 4 or 5 bilingual primary schools in
right, and I
Espoo.
think
So
those are
there's nothing to continue from that.
yeah, that is a and I'm not sure if there's a plan. I haven't heard of any plans for adding a bilingual Lukio, for example. They have expanded the number of English language or bilingual lines qualifications at the local ammattikoulu, Omnia, which is great, but there's clearly a need for more of that.
What about once kids finish high school or vocational school? Are there many options to study at an undergraduate level in English?
Well, not enough. There are more than there used to be, and I think there are plans to expand that from. I haven't heard that officially, but I've heard that through some people that are working at that level. But there's a long ways to go to catch up with the demand. So this is a real challenge for those who again don't have enough Finnish language skills, which you might expect if someone moves here as a teenager. And uh, many of them are going abroad to study university because there simply aren't enough places in Finland.
And I
And there's
suppose
also,
once they go abroad to study in university, they're going to stay abroad. So they will
yeah,
have
this,
been, all
yeah,
these resources will have been spent on them here, and then they leave.
yeah, yeah,
They
it's a
don't bring
real,
back revenue into the country and tax
exactly.
dollars.
Yeah, and there have been studies showing this issue of brain drain from Finland because of issues like this. And so this is something that is again an area for Espoo to invest in for sure to provide more university opportunities for those who come from the IB, for example, from Lukio.
And you would think as in Otaniemi, they house Aalto University and so many, it's a center of startup culture in Finland. So you would think it would be to the advantage of the city of Espoo.
Absolutely, absolutely. And us and Aalto is doing some
It's
great
been,
things. So
it has been great diving into some of these issues with you, Jay, today. And I hope we can continue in further discussions about the other two pillars of your campaign.
thanks, Dana.
Thanks for the conversation.